So this is the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and this phone has been on the market since 2021, and it's probably the last Max phone that you'll ever see with a notch. Actually, it is the last Max phone you're ever going to see with a notch. You might not even see the Plus this year with a notch. So do keep that in mind. If you like the notch, I don't know if you would or why you would. I was never the biggest fan, but if you like that, this might be the one automatically you want to go with. So, this phone right here, should you buy it here mid 2023? So let's go ahead and take a look at where the prices are ranging from right now. We got to keep it real with you. 867, 17, 827, 29 refurbished. Look, at some people are like, I'm going to get rid of this thing for 550 pre-owned in fair condition. So you might get a little crack up in the corner. You might get a little bit of a scratch on the sides. You might get a little bit of messed up paint job on the sides, but you can probably cop this thing for under $600. Is it worth it? Let's check the specs real quick. A quick refresh: 6.7 inch Super Retina XDR ProMotion OLED display, aka the same display tech you'll find essentially on the newest iPhone 14 Pro Max, sans the dynamic island. Triple 12 megapixel iSight rear cameras, cable up to 4K 60 recording with 4K 24p available as well with raw photography. In addition to that, it does have the first ever macro mode in the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So if you go to here, you can use the 0.5x. You can also just put it here and you'll see this little flower icon will allow you to get really close-up shots. And one of the best things about the iPhone 13 Pro Max was the fact that shots always were in focus, like everything. Some people call this pinnacle peak iPhone right here, and it's probably mostly due to the fact that this phone had like perfect battery life, like it just all day long. I mean, perfect would probably be like a week long, but had really great battery life, basically perfection on the camera game, super fast, ProMotion, no speed issues. Overall, just a solid smartphone right here. This also did house the A15 Bionic, which Apple still felt was so good that they actually carried it over to the iPhone 14 and 14 Plus, which is why people never really forgot about the iPhone 14 or 13 Pro Max, even though the 14 Plus and the 14 came out. People just remembered, look, Apple A15 still on the old phone, more premium body, Pro model, and I'm going to save myself a little bit of cash over something new with less specs. No thank you, Apple. So the iPhone 13 Pro Max was a steal in that regard. In addition, it had a pretty sizable 4352 milliamp hour battery. This battery life was so good, in fact, that's pretty much all I really harped about and talked about and just ran my mouth about when I was covering this phone more frequently. But here's the thing, if you wait for the iPhone 15 Pro Max this year, you are going to get yourself a larger battery and probably a little bit of a different design. Now, in terms of the design itself, this phone right here definitely still has a little bit of a sharper corner than something like an 11 Pro Max, which I think was one of the most comfortable phones you could ever use. The iPhone 13 Pro Max still has a more premium look with this heavier stainless steel. We have this triple camera bump, which has really amazing, difference between, you'll see the glass housing right there and then the matte texture here. It just gives it a really luxe kind of feel. And I thought I was going to like space black more, but I actually missed the graphite color. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I like the graphite color this option more. I find that it didn't scratch as much as the space black model, and it just looks really clean and classy. It looks like a space gray MacBook in a phone. So really nice. Now, the phone itself was still quite heavy, and a lot of people don't really appreciate the Max phones just because that right there, you've seen them hand gymnastics, but they do have a really smooth one-handed mode. So I could bring the one-handed mode down like that, and then I could bring it back up very easily. Now, one thing I don't really like about this is that there's no split screen on this phone, and some people are saying that iPhones are so boring these days. They're essentially appliances. But this phone right here is very durable with an IP68 dust and water resistance. And in mid-2023, there's not really anything that's that much different on the market today, in terms of the high-end phones. This feels like a phone that just came out, even though it didn't. 240 grams is quite heavy, though. Do keep that in mind. And one of the things that went away with the 14 Pro Max, which made a lot of people jump ship to different brands, was no SIM card slot. But the iPhone 13 Pro Max has the SIM card slot. Is this a steal? Well, if you wait a little bit, it'll come down even more. But display wise, this phone can hit around 1000 nits of brightness, which is really good, 1200 nits peak. Now, the iPhone 14 Pro Max, this is an area a lot of people don't talk about, but it really is, the brightest phone on the market when it comes to seeing it outdoors. Much brighter than the iPhone 13 Pro Max. However, I think that contributed to the phone having worse battery life. Do you agree with that? Now, the iPhone 13 Pro Max also has a really nice brightness though indoors for the most part. You'll never really need that 2000 nits, but when you get outdoors, you're needing it. But one thing about it is that it is not the sharpest panel out there. We do have 1284 by 2778 pixels, but most people, unless you're really bringing it like this close to your face, like right there, most people are never going to be looking that close at the pixel differences between this and say a higher density competing smartphone. So overall, I do say the display is really nice. The bezels are also quite thin, and even though this is going to be much thinner on the upcoming 15 Pro Max, these bezels still are quite thin compared to some other phones on the market, with the exception being like the Galaxy S23 models. Those are even thinner on the edges, including even the S22 models. But in terms of just generally, the Samsung and the Apple smartphones are some of the thinnest bezels on the market today. But overall, you cannot really go wrong with a display that looks this colorful. And one of the things I really like is that it's a really big OLED panel. So if you are watching Apple TV Plus, or you're watching, you're reading the news or anything in dark mode and stuff, you'll really enjoy, the deeper contrast ratios, especially at night. And if you have an iPad to go along with this, those don't typically have OLED displays. So if you go ahead and jump from your iPhone to the iPad, you're definitely going to see a big difference in the contrast. You could see it right there. Just look at the deep blacks. It's just very, very noticeable, and it makes the colors pop more. And the last thing I want to note about this panel is that this panel is, again, it doesn't take a lot of advantage, and this is for all the Maxes of, no split screen and stuff like that. But this panel has really well-tuned colors. So how I would say this, I don't know what the heck that was. How I would say this is that the panel is just very accurate in terms of it doesn't oversaturate, and it doesn't it doesn't come down to a point where it's not saturated enough. It's just right. And so that's one of the best things about it. So big, large display, it's definitely worth it. It's definitely still a go right now. I say it competes with most high-end flagships on the market still to this day. So let's talk about the cameras. Now, I mentioned them earlier about how they have great focus. Now, these phones right here, the 13 Pro and Pro Max, do have a RAW mode. So that makes them better than the regular photos, especially if you want to edit your photos and get your own contrast, your own saturation, and put your own work into it, which is really fun. You could even do it right from your iPhone. After you take a photo, you just grab it right here, hit edit, and then you can go right here, use different highlights, brightness sliders. You can see down here sharpness. A lot of this stuff is stuff you would find in something like Photoshop, but you could do it right here from your iPhone. So that's pretty cool as well. But I gotta say, the video, the photos, the zooming, while it's not the longest zoom out there, the reason this phone is still 100% worth it to me is because the video quality and the photo quality is still on par with some of the best out there, but it has nearly perfection when it comes to focus. And that's huge. Why is that huge? Because nobody got time when they're using a smartphone camera, which is a consumer grade product, obviously, to be going ahead and thinking about focus. And this is a phone, this is one of the only phones I've ever used where I literally never think about focus, like ever. I just don't think about it. Do you think about it? Because on this phone, this might be the only thing that annoys people, but you could turn it off. The macro mode will automatically get triggered. But I mean, look at this. Every time you put it anywhere near anywhere, it's just got perfection on the focus. This is incredible. It's what I love about this phone. Also, on this front-facing camera right here, this is also fantastic. It really matches up well with the rear, and Apple definitely went to town on making sure that the 4K 60 video looks really good on the front. This is one of the few phones, along with the other 13 Pros and 14 Pros, that I really enjoy using for matching up my front video and the rear video. I actually don't even think I need to use the rear camera, where on some of my other phones, I'm talking about for vlogging on the front. On my other phones, I actually will record like this just to get better video quality. Not with this phone. This phone is really solid, one of the best creation tools on the market today. Now, should you buy it mid 2023 in terms of the speakers and the audio? And I would say yes. I would say one thing that is going to be not the latest standard anymore going forward is going to be Bluetooth 5.0. This is not 5.3. This also doesn't have Wi-Fi 6E. So connectivity standards in a couple years, maybe even late this year when the next models of iPhone come out, they'll be a little bit behind, not horribly behind, but a little bit behind. Latest Bluetooth standards, stuff like that, are going to get behind on here. But for now, they're still really good. Lightning is archaic. I really don't like Lightning anymore. I want USB-C on all the iPhones, and I think this is the year we're going to see it. So can't really recommend that. But for the majority of people who have iPhones and are planning on buying another one like the 13 Pro Max, you probably already have a Lightning cable. So it's probably not a big deal to you either. Now, next thing I want to talk about here with this phone is the phone call quality, because the phone call quality is definitely something that you want to take into account. I do think in certain areas, the Samsung, like rural areas, the Samsung still shines here, but with the Qualcomm modems in here, the iPhone is definitely stronger than ever before since the 13 Pro Max, and the 12 Pro Max I believe had it as well. But the 13 Pro Max, 14 Pro Max, they definitely got better than before. However, I still find Samsung to be a little bit more reliable in this sense. Face ID hasn't really changed much, and we still have the same looking notch on the brand new MacBook Air 15, which I recently picked up. If you want to see a review on that, let me know down below. But the notch right here houses Face ID. I really want a fingerprint sensor on the side, but that would be really cool. Touch ID right there, but it's not there. You'll see Face ID still works wonderfully well. No issues whatsoever. The battery life on this phone, again, has been one of the few iPhones in history that I was able to go a full 2 days without actually needing to go to the charger. Heavy users, still gaming, 4K, raw photography, raw videography, you guys will be needing to hit that charger every night. But for the most part, this phone is a boss in battery life. Throw this baby in low power mode. You're going to have to deal with an iPhone 14 Plus refresh rate of 60 hertz. But you're going to get even further. You're going to go even further. So is the iPhone 13 Pro Max a go right now? It does come with the USB-C to Lightning cable, but no USB-C, 5G, sub 6 millimeter wave. It's still got millimeter wave. There are phones, Android phones launching today without millimeter wave. So yes, it's a 100% a go. However, if you really want to save yourself more, what I would do if I was you is I would consider just waiting maybe 2 more months, wait for the 15 Pros to come out, and then pick this up, because it's probably going to go down in the $700 to $600 range after those launch. And then if you want to pay that $800 to $900, you'll probably be able to get a 14 Pro Max if you want a brighter display, maybe a little bit better camera. You'll be able to get that phone if you want. But yes, 100%, this is still a win. It's almost a flawless smartphone, honestly, unless you really don't like, not having a split screen, you don't like the notch. I mean, those are subjective things, but in terms of the pure hardware, the camera has been great. The performance has been excellent. The battery has been excellent. So let me know your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you plan on picking one up now, or even a smaller 13 Pro? Did you pick one up already? Share your thoughts with the community down below. I'll catch you all in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.